Welcome to the service clinic at Low Country Harley-Davidson. I'm Doc Harley. It's time for the October do's and don'ts. Let's start with spark plugs. Many of you like to use an automotive style spark plug versus a Harley-Davidson, thinking that this is made by this manufacturer, so fine. That's great, but walk out to your motorcycle this afternoon, take off your spark plug, and grab a hold of the cap and turn it. Automotive spark plugs have a cap that will come off. And it's in my theory, my opinion, that with a spark, with this loose, it's actually being a resistance from it finally reaching its final destination. So if you choose an automotive type spark plug, here's what I do with a customer that chooses that. I take the most pointiest thing I've got in the toolbox and I apply a little dab of red Loctite on it. Then I will take the cap off. I will put just a dab on the threads. Then I will bring it all the way down, put this part in a vise, take a pliers, and make it tight. That usually stops it from ever coming apart. But if you don't know this, yes, you're probably having a little resistance between your spark plugs. So do, if you want to, choose these spark plugs. Don't just put them in. Do something about the cap before you have a resistance to your ignition system. Let's move over. If you are going to work on your motorcycle and change the top gaskets, any gasket really, make sure you put the gasket on right, such as the Harley-Davidson head gasket on a twin cam. Numbers up. All right, they are made differently, so numbers are up. In the M8s, well, they're real helpful. They put up on it. If you use an aftermarket, read their instructions. Make sure you put the gaskets on the correct position. Speaking of gaskets, if you're going to do a top end or do anything on your motor and you're taking your exhaust system off, don't put your exhaust system back on with your old gasket. All right? They'll never fit perfectly the way they did the first time. These crush the first time to your exhaust system and form around it. When you take it off and put your exhaust system back on, it never reaches it. So use a new gasket. And here's a little tech tip. If some of you have these bushing installers, seal installers, guess what? There's one size that fits perfectly. And you can put this right up to the hole and push it in with your hand instead of trying to manipulate it, trying to get in. So you're going to do any type of motor work, removing your exhaust system, use a brand new exhaust gasket. For those of you that are possibly vertically challenged and you want to lower your motorcycle, well, you might have a motorcycle that already has an adapter on it, which I don't like, but you might have it, and you want to lower it more. So you order a shorter shock, but then you keep the lowering thing on it. No, don't do that, because what it does is put this on such an angle, you're putting all the force on the middle instead of letting the shock absorber do its job upright. So when you are choosing a shock absorber, choose the one that you want. And then when you put this on your motorcycle, make sure everything is clearing underneath the rear fender. Check the bolts for the fender. Check if you have an early model and you have a sissy bar, and make sure the bolts aren't too long going through. And then make sure, like on Softails, you have wiring that goes up the backbone of the fender. Make sure you're not hitting that. If you find that the short shock is just not enough, think about lowering your front of your motorcycle. Yes, if you have your motorcycle, let's say this, and you've lowered the back end, if you lower the front end too, you actually lowered it even more where it sits a little bit lower for you. So don't complicate things and don't make things worse by adding another extension on it. And finally, the last thing, if you are working on your motorcycle and you are taking your passing lamps off or working around your passing lamps, do find a friend that drinks Royal Crown. It's amazing how these fit perfectly over these to protect it. And of course, I use the famous Jack Daniels bags, but these fit perfectly over, they protect it, and you can take this on and off and not scratch anything. A little do's and don'ts for October. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm Doc Harley. We'll see you next week.